Hey YouTube, and welcome back to the Guitar Slinger Hockey channel. I have today what I hope will be kind of an interesting video. As far as I can tell, I am the first actual owner of the Bauer Ultrasonic skate and fit system, and definitely a number of reviews out there coming from gear reviewing channels, but I'm just a dude who wanted a new pair of skates. And so I hoped I could shed a little light on the new ultrasonic skates as well as its associated fit system and give you some warnings if you're somebody like me that's been wearing Bauer skates for years. The spoiler alert is that these skates are not the skates that I ended up sticking with. So really what this video is going to be is really just some pictures talking about the skates and talking about the fit systems themselves, and hopefully it's not too boring, but hopefully it will be insightful because I'm somebody who actually spent my own money to buy these skates, and I'm not just somebody reviewing them for an online retailer or anything like that. What I would like to say, I'd like to give out a shout out to Hockey Tutorial, Chris on the Hockey Tutorial channel. Always do appreciate him being one of the first ones that ever shows any reviews of any new equipment that's coming out. He does a really good job. He has great high detail video and gives good explanations of everything, unlike the crappy photos that you're going to see in my bootleg video here. But at the same time, I think I can add a little bit of perspective just by the fact that I purchased these and got a chance to feel them out for myself as a real owner of these skates. So with that said, I will go into the fit system now to kind of give you a little perspective on how the fit system works, and what I've actually noticed is the reality as opposed to what you guys are reading online, and hopefully share that, because there is definitely a difference between what you're seeing online as well as what the manufacturers, Bauer, is telling to online retailers and in-store retailers. They are not reflecting reality. So with that said, let's get into it. So here's the new Bauer Fit System. If you're not familiar with it, so they've done away with the Nexus line of skates, so you can only get a Vapor or a Supreme, which is not a big deal because no one really wore the Nexus anyways. But basically you have three fit systems. You have Fit 1, which is for low volume, narrow width foot. Fit 2, medium volume, medium width. And Fit 3 is a high volume, wide width skate. So really what they're trying to do here is, in previous generations, you can kind of think about it from a Fit 1 is the Fit 1 is the Vapor, Fit 2 is the Supreme, and Fit 3 is a Nexus. That's kind of what they're doing, but it isn't so simple. It's more complex than that, which is fine. So what you're going to be able to do now is you will be able to choose a Vapor or a Supreme Ultrasonic in a Fit 1, 2, or 3 in your respective size. And so that is good because it allows you, if you kind of had a weird foot shape like I do, like I'm like one of the handful of people on the globe who probably wore a Nexus skate because I have high arches, I have a high end-step, I have a really wide foot, high heel depth, so I have a hard time finding retail skates, and I don't want to deal with going through custom skates again like I did last year, because that did not work out. So basically what you're looking at from talking to Bauer, my understanding on talking to their fit experts is that with that Fit 1, it really is pretty close to a D-width Vapor 2X Pro skate. And for a little bit of history, I am somebody who has worn a 7.5 double E Bauer skate across all three models for years. So I'm used to that fit, that style, and just kind of feeling it out. And basically what they're trying to say is that the Fit 1 is pretty close to a D-width Vapor. And so they really haven't done too much to that Fit 1. So if you happen to be Like if I was a 7.5D, a Vapor 2X Pro prior to this Fit system coming out, in theory, I would be actually wearing a Fit 1, and then it'd be pretty simple with regard to that. That said, so when the skates were first coming out in the new Fit system, specifically the Ultrasonic. Now I'm somebody who's heavier. I'm 230 pounds. I was in a 7.5 EE Vapor 2X Pro before this. It was just too didn't have enough support. It wasn't enough heel depth. It wasn't this, that, and the other thing. So I got rid of them. I wanted to get into a Supreme style boot, and so I was liking what they were doing with the new skate. And essentially, I knew that I was a high likelihood that I'd need a Fit 3 based upon my heel depth. And Fit 3s have been very hard to find up until the point, like prior to the release date. So, as I'm recording this, it's July 19th. And I actually had to order these before the skates officially released on June 26th. And so I found one pair of 7.5 Fit 3 ultrasonic skates out there, and I ordered them based upon the fact that that's just generally the size that I wear as a 7.5. And when I got the skates, boy was I disappointed in them. There was no way that those were going to fit. And so essentially it was just the heel depth was great. It was what I expected. The heel width, the overall forefoot width, and the length of the skate completely different. So whatever your thought process is on your sizing for your Bauer skates in the past, I think you really need to put that aside and go in and get scanned by an actual machine. Now, I've actually been scanned in years past when they first released it. It was an inaccurate fitting system from when they first released it. And after I had received my 7.5 Fit 3 Ultrasonics and realized that they were way too narrow, they were way too short, the heel was like kind of close but still a little too narrow, I did have an opportunity to get scanned on the new imaging machine, and it scanned me as an 8 Fit 3. And I'm like, okay, I guess fair enough, but they didn't have any in stock. And so had to kind of figure out something else and wait for more skates to come in and this, that, and the other thing. And so essentially, that it just didn't make sense because I've never worn an 8 in a Bauer skate ever in my life. And plus, I just, the skates were so narrow that I was just like very confused about that, even on the Fit 3. And so I called Bauer and I said, hey, listen, I got the 7.5 Fit 3 and these don't fit me, and I've been wearing that 7.5 length for forever. And I'm like, is there like a difference? Like, how wide are these skates supposed to be? Are they like kind of what are they supposed to fit like? And he's like, well, a Fit 3 is supposed to fit the equivalent in the forefoot width as a double E. And I'm like, well, that's not true. And so I had a pair of 2S Pros that I was able to try on in the 7.5 double E. The 7.5 Fit 3 is definitely a D width. It's like the equivalent of a D width. And I was blown away. So 7.5 D Supreme and a 7.5 Fit 3 are like the same width. And that was definitely different than what Bauer had told me. And so I brought those skates into a local shop. They tried them on. They're like, oh, these are totally a D width skate, even in the Fit 3. In fact, the Fit 2 and the Fit 3 were very similar. I would find out later that the width on them, like 7.5 and a Fit 2 and a 7.5 Fit 3, they're almost exactly the same width. The only difference was the heel depth, and maybe a little bit more width at the heel on the Fit 3. But there was the forefoot width was like the same. It was crazy. So kind of getting an opportunity to try some different things on after the fact. I had returned the 7.5 Fit 3 Ultrasonics, and I had a chance to try on the Vapor 2X Pros in a 8 Fit 2 and an 8.5 Fit 3. And the 8.5 Fit 3, again, it was definitely the right heel depth. It was definitely the right heel width. Too long to really kind of tell, but what was interesting about the 8 Fit 2 in the Vapor, even though there wasn't enough heel depth for me, the width was like way wide on the 8. And so, long story continuing to be long, is that the eventually an ultrasonic in a size 8 Fit 3 showed up in a local shop here, and I tried it on, and it was a pretty darn good fit. It was like it was wide enough in the forefoot. The volume was like perfect for me. It was even like almost on a touch on the wide side on the forefoot. And so what this really means is that I'm now 100% sure that if you're interested in going to Bauer and trying out this new fit system, that you definitely need to get scanned. I'm also pretty confident that the scanning system is more accurate than it has been in the past. So I wouldn't be afraid to listen to whatever the scan is. You know, because typically in the past you might see an 8, and they're like, yeah, it always is a half size up conservatively, so let's put you in a 7.5. That's what would happen in the past. But right now, at least in my case, you know, and typically my custom skate size is a left 7.5 and a right 7.75. So that might be the reason for it. But even my left foot was way too narrow and way too short. So there was actually a world of difference in size between a 7.5 Fit 3 and an 8 Fit 3. It was crazy. So I would recommend throwing out what you know about Bauer Fit and go and get scanned and like completely ignore whether it's a Vapor or a Supreme, because even though the dimensions of the skates between the Bauer and the Supreme are going to be like, you know, a Fit 1, 2, and a 3 technically fit the same in air quotes across the board. The construction of a Vapor and a Supreme is a different skate, obviously. So there's a lot more pinching of the Achilles tendon going on in the Supreme, whereas it's a more, I guess, standardized fitting on the heel pocket of the Vapor. You know, but the Supreme is a stiffer boot. So there's definitely construction differences about the fit, and so that might actually make a difference. So you may find yourself kind of comfortable in, you know, let's pretend that you were a 7 Fit 2. You may find out that that's the right size for you, but you actually might find that a Vapor fits you more comfortably than a Supreme or vice versa. So it's going to be, it's not standard. Just don't, please, whatever you do not order something online, or there's a high likelihood you'll be returning it unless you get a chance to try stuff first. And so I think that's something that you guys really should consider, and when you're looking at this new fit system. In fact, I would say that from an overall feel of the skates, they feel like a Vapor and they feel like any Supreme of the past. So that was good. So let's transition to the next part. Okay, so now I just want to give a little bit of a review on the Ultrasonics. So what I will say is, just kind of looking at, this is the 7.5 Fit 3 before I got a chance to return it. You can see that the eyelet system is more sloped now than in the you know, the right angle approach that maybe the Vapor and some other brands have, and they're using the eyelet system. This is like superior to me. This is a way better way to do things, in my opinion. I think that it just looks like a lot, it feels a lot better. It feels like it wraps the top of the foot better. You can also see on the heel part, you can tell Bauer really wants to do a full one-piece boot like CCM. I'm sorry, there's still no comparison in the technology. Like CCM with their one-piece boots on their SuperTac and their FT2 jet speeds are just so far superior to a two-piece boot that, you know, Bauer obviously would just get sued if they tried doing that. But this is kind of their knockoff bootleg version with that that heel design and the outsole design on it. So it is better than what's been around in the past. But again, I think Hockey Tutorial Channel talked about it. I think it's probably just going to add a little bit of durability, but I wouldn't notice a performance difference. The other thing I would say is that the tongue, I think Bauer finally got it right with the tongues. They're like durable. Well, I wouldn't say durable. I don't know that yet. But what I will say is that the tongue feels good. You won't want to change it out. It's comfortably molds to your foot. It's not obnoxious like tongues in the past, like on the 1X 2.0 Vapor or the 2S Pro, where a lot of people would be swapping those out or just complaining about it. Let's put it this way: if I was ordering a custom Supreme Ultrasonic skate and I had the chance to swap out the tongue, I probably wouldn't. I mean, I like the traditional felt tongues, but I probably wouldn't. So it's good enough. Whereas if it was a 2S Pro that I was getting custom, I would definitely remove the previous generation tongues. So I thought they did a really good job at that. Also, if we kind of take a look now at the tendon guard, I would say this is a improvement from a design standpoint, but there are other things that that may or may not be good depending on what type of skater you are. So it definitely seems beefier than any generation in the past. I have broken those off previous Supreme skates, specifically like the NXG skates. These seem beefier. They do not dig into your calf, which I know some people were worried about. They feel very comfortable with regard to that. They enable you to have a lot more range of motion than any other type of tendon guard back there. But there's also something I didn't expect. There's a little bit less stability in those skates because of that, that I did not expect at all. So it almost feels like I think I actually might prefer a more traditional tendon guard, and I didn't really expect that. But I think they are done well, if that makes sense. Now, if we are looking at the material inside, like the linings and things like that, I think they've done a really good job at this. It's very similar to the Vapor 2X Pro. I would say it seems thicker to me. The comfort edge is really good. I think the heel lock is good, but the heel lock, what I would say about it is that it intentionally tries to pinch or grip around the Achilles tendon of your foot. And depending on the height of your heel, if your heel isn't perfectly designed for that pocket, it will cause some abrasion. And for me, I have a larger heel, so it does cause a little bit of abrasion, so that's kind of a knock on it in my opinion. So it needs to fit you perfectly, and it could break in over time, but it definitely wasn't ideal when I put my foot in it. Whereas a Vapor just kind of lets your heel dictate the shape of the boot itself. So I would take that into consideration. Lastly, what I'll say about the steel is that it is the new Lightspeed Pulse Titanium steel. It really feels and looks like a knockoff of Step Steel Black Steel. And I'm wondering if this is the steel and the reason why you can't get Step Steel for Toque Edge holders anymore. So by the way, if you like using Step Steel, your SOL, you're basically going to have to move to either leaving the steel on here or going with tied-in bionic flare or something like that. But it's the same height as Step as far as I can tell. It does come with a Quad Zero profile on the steel, which is really cool because most people are starting to move towards like a Superior or a Quad profile, which means that you don't have to pay extra money to go get the skate profiled now. The only problem is Quad Zero is not really, well, for me, it's not my favorite. It's not as, I guess, fast or stable as maybe a Quad 1, but that's just a personal preference. The steel, I don't think anybody's going to know really about the quality of it until we get a chance to use it. I would say it's higher end than the LS5 based on the little bit of knowledge I know about it and having used LS5 steel. But I'm still going to be skeptical that anything's going to come close to the Step Steel Black Steel or Flare. So with that said, though, I think overall the skate is done very well. I think if your foot fits in the boot, I think it'll be no different than what you're used to. The problem is you figuring out what size you actually wear prior to actually buying the skate. And the other thing for me, even though I found the right size, which was an 8 fit 3 in my case, the boot didn't really wrap my foot and did have a couple of pressure points around where the toe cap meets the quarter package. I do not think Bauer has ever done a good job on that part of the skate, where the toe cap meets the quarter package. And that reminds me to talk about the toe cap for a second, but it kind of, where it bolts on is a pressure point for me, and you can't punch it and you can't bake it out. And to stretch it would actually risk damaging the skate itself. So it's either going to work for you immediately or it's not. That's how I would look at that. Looking at the toe cap, it is asymmetrical, as is the toe cap on the Vapor. The toe caps are slightly different on the two skates. The toe cap on the Ultrasonic is actually a felt line, which I think is pretty cool. Adds a little bit of comfort and probably a little bit of warmth for really cold rinks, or if you're skating outside or whatever. But there was something about the Vapor that actually fit a little bit better. The Vapor's is not felt lined. There was just something about it that maybe was a little bit more comfortable. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. But especially when you use an Adrenaline Sport Power Foot toe cap insert on the roof of the toe cap in a Vapor skate, that's a really good combination, whereas you probably don't want to do that in the Ultrasonic skate, because if you ever take it out, it'll peel out the felt lining of the toe cap. So anyways, I hope this gave you guys a little bit of a insight into the foot fitting system, as well as a little bit of a personal review of the Ultrasonic skates themselves. At the end of the day, I will say that I ended up in a CCM AS3 Pro Super Tack, and the reason for that was the one-piece boot design did a better job of wrapping the entire foot, and it just was it was quite a bit more comfortable. Of course, the only thing I have to deal with in that skate is that there just isn't quite enough heel depth for my particular foot, but the rest, I figured out a way to deal with that with ankle bone pads. It's also a really, really stiff boot. The AS3 Pro is a much stiffer boot than the Supreme is, so that might be important to you. I don't know, but it's just something for you guys to keep in mind. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was a long one, but I hope it gave you guys some perspective on the skates. And reach out and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Peace.